Welcome to the New Mexico 911 program GIS training video series. This video in the series is about various topology checks performed on the geodata provider's data as part of the NM911 GIS data assessment. Topology can be defined as the rules to preserve data integrity by managing spatial relationships between features. These rules can be set for features within a feature class or features from different feature classes. Here are a couple of examples for topology rules in the NM911 workflow. Road center lines cannot intersect each other or overlap, and address points must be within the administrative boundary of a geodata provider. In the NM911 GIS data model, there is a NM911 topology data set along with the feature classes. Current topology rules are defined only for three feature classes: address points, road center lines, and administrative boundaries. These rules will be expanded to include PSAP and ESN boundaries in the near future. As part of the monthly GIS data collection and assessment, data uploaded to the NM911 data portal by geodata providers are crosswalked from local schema to state schema and imported into the GIS data model. Data are then validated, and an assessment report and a geodatabase with data inaccuracies are generated. The NM911 GIS data model template is available for download from New Mexico 911 program website, NM911.org. The report and error geodatabase were made available on the NM911 data portal for geodata providers' review. Since the topology is built within the GIS data model and not on local data, topology errors were exported into separate feature classes. Providers can add those error feature classes or the NM911 topology itself to ArcMap to review errors. However, to truly investigate the error and correct data, we recommend creating topology within your local geodatabase. This will help fix data errors and validate immediately. Otherwise, providers will have to wait till the next month's upload and validation cycle to check if errors were corrected based on the data edits made. If you would like to maintain your data in a geodatabase using the state schema, you can download the NM911 GIS data model template available on the website nm911.org. To work with topology, users need ArcGIS Standard or Advanced license levels. ArcGIS Basic license level does not allow editing topology. Now let's take a look at topology in ArcMap. Here is my ArcMap session. In the catalog window, I navigated to the directory where I have a copy of a geodatabase for Doña County that I'm going to use as an example for this video. Please note most, if not all, of these errors were corrected since then. I am going to click on the little plus sign to expand my geodatabase, and I see there are two feature data sets. One is NM911 and the second is NM911 errors. So the NM911 feature data set contains feature classes from the NM911 GIS data model, and the NM911 errors feature data set contains feature classes that were generated as part of the GIS data assessment. Providers can simply overlay these errors on top of their local data to see where the error location is and then correct the data accordingly. So now let's examine the NM911 topology. Simply right-click on the topology and properties. This will show the feature classes that were participating in the topology, which are address points, road center lines, and administrative boundaries. And all of these have the same rank as 1. So these ranks can be set based on the accuracy of the data. Highest accuracy data will have a higher rank. We are going to leave these as default equal to 1, which means all the layers have high accuracy. Now let's take a look at the rules tab. So these are the defined spatial relationships in our topology for the NM911 workflow. Address points must be properly inside the administrative boundary, and road center lines must not overlap, and so on. So I'm going to click on OK button to close this window. So if you're going to create a topology in your local database, it needs to be validated first. So to do that, simply right-click on the topology and click on Validate. It might take a while if you're doing it for the first time, depending on how large your data sets are. You can validate a topology any number of times as you make data edits or corrections. Adding topology to your ArcMap is very easy. Simply drag the topology onto map window or table of contents of your ArcMap and click yes to add all the participating feature layers to evaluate the errors and correct them. The NM911 topology is pre-validated, and that is why you are seeing all the pink dots and lines all over my screen. Now, before continuing examining the NM911 topology, let's pause for a second and look at the NM911 error feature dataset. So there are two feature classes, which address point has invalid topology and road center line has invalid topology. So I'm going to add these two datasets to my ArcMap and overlay on top of the existing data. So to do that, I'm going to turn these topology errors off. I'm going to simply drag and drop the invalid topology feature classes on my ArcMap for both roads and address points. And I'm going to turn the roads off to examine the address points first. I will increase the size of this address point topology so that we can easily identify. So one of our rule is that address points must be inside the administrative boundary, and all these invalid topology address point errors that are shown in green on my desktop are outside the administrative boundary. So these needs to be corrected. You can look at these individual topology errors by opening the attribute table and identify what those records are. Similarly, I'm going to turn the address point data off and turn the road center lines on and change the size of the errors. And as you can see, these green lines are the topology errors for road center lines. You can open the attribute table to view where the errors are located. However, these do not tell you what type of error that is, so that is why we recommend implementing topology in your local geodatabase. Now let's resume examining the NM911 topology. I'm going to remove these error feature classes from my table of contents. And to view and edit topology errors, ArcGIS has a topology toolbar. To open that, click Customize, Toolbars, and Topology, or simply right-click on this empty gray space on your ArcMap and click Topology. This opens up Topology Toolbar, and everything is grayed out for now because Topology Toolbar requires Edit Mode to access. To do that, you need to enable editing using your editor toolbar. If you do not have your editor toolbar open, click Customize, Toolbars, and open Editor Toolbar, or simply right-click on the empty space on your ArcMap and open Editor Toolbar. So I have the Editor Toolbar here, and I'm going to click the drop-down and click Start Editing. This activates the topology tools. The first two tools are for map topology to define rules within a map document, and the tools on the right half are for geodatabase topology, which we will work with. To view individual errors per specific rule, use Error Inspector window. Simply click on this button. This opens up an Error Inspector window at the bottom of your ArcMap. Click Search now to populate these errors. You can also filter the errors using the drop-down for specific error type and click Search now to update those errors. You can also filter these errors by checking the visible extent only checkbox and click search now. That filters out errors further. To review an error, you can click on the row and it gets highlighted in black. Right click on the row and click zoom to the specific error location. Now let's look at some of these errors by rules set in the NM911 workflow and how to correct them. I have a few bookmarks made in my ArcMap. Let's go over each of those. So the first bookmark is must not intersect. Let's click on that, and before going further, let me turn the labels on so that we can easily identify the features. So right click on the road centerline feature class, open layer properties. Click on labels tab. I'm going to check this box, and for label field I will use road label column and click OK. So this gives me the road names here, and I am going to filter these errors, search now, and then I have two of them, must not intersect and must not intersect or touch interior. So let's investigate each of these, and I will also turn the administrative boundary off to just simplify our view. So I am going to zoom to this intersection. Let's examine these roads by simply selecting them. There's an issue right here where the Zorro trail is going past the trail's end road. One of our rules in NM911 workflow is every road centerline must be broken and snapped at the intersection, with an exception for an overpass or underpass. So let's verify this is actually an intersection and not an overpass. So to do that, I'm going to add base map, imagery base map to my ArcMap. This doesn't look like an overpass or an underpass situation. So let's zoom out so that these roads are visible. And I'm going to turn the imagery off, and let's see how we can fix the error. So one thing we can do, using the edit tool, click on the road center line and right click and edit vertices, or simply double click on that road so that these vertices will show up. So there's an extra vertex that I'm going to remove. So delete vertex and click on it, and it will delete that vertex. And now simply I'm going to drag or extend the De Anza Plaza Road so that it would form an intersection right here. And now let's see what else we can do here. Zoom in. So I see that trails and road is going past the intersection of these three segments. So let's fix that. So I'm going to double click on this trails end to see all the vertices. And there are two vertices that are very close to each other. So I am going to delete this end vertex here and drag the trails and road west segment to form this intersection. And let's click on validate to see if that resolved our error. You can do validate using these two toolbars. So you can validate in a specified area, or you can just validate topology in current extent. So for us, I'm going to click on this validate in the current extent button. So looks like that fixed both the errors, and we are good to go. So that is how you fix the must not intersect or touch interior errors. And having the topology built in the local database, it's much easier. Validation can be done right away. Now let's look at a second error where it says must not intersect or touch interior. Here are a few segments where there are a couple of topology errors. Talavera Avenue looks like it is not broken and snapped at the intersection of Modoc Trail. So let's fix that. So to do that, you can simply split this segment into two parts using your split tool. Click on this split tool and come to the intersection of these two road center lines and click on it, and that splits the segment into two, right? So however, there's another issue that you need to fix, not simply by splitting the errors, is you need to correct the address ranges for these segments. So to do that, I'm going to open the attribute table for road center lines, and I will select these two segments that we just split and show selected records, and you can notice that both the segments have the same range, which is a violation of one of our rule. So let's fix those address ranges. So to do that, let's check the range for the previous segment, which is from 8800 to 8899, and then this segment is from 8900 to 8999, and the segment is from 9000 to 9099 block. So from west to east, the numbers are increasing, which means this segment should start from 8900, and looks like the Modoc Trail touches the Talavera Avenue at about half point or midpoint. So I'm going to adjust the range to 8901 on the low, and the right low address high is 8949. Similarly, on the right hand side, 8900 to 8948. And then the next segment starts at 8951 and goes to 8999, and then the right hand side starts at 8950 and goes to 8999. So that forms a continuous address range on these segments. And I am going to validate my topology in the current extent, and looks like that resolved the error. And to save all these edits, you need to click on the editor toolbar and save edits. If not, these edits will not be saved. So once you finish editing your data, you can come to the editor toolbar and click stop editing. So now let's look at the next error type, which is must not self-intersect. Let's see, so there is this research park circle which is touching itself or intersecting itself. So how can we fix it? So select this segment and double click or right click and edit vertices, and as you can see there are more vertices here, and there's this tiny part of this segment extending to the east of the research park circle. Let's verify if this extension really exists on the ground. To do that, I'm going to turn the imagery base map on. So change the scale and turn it on. And yeah, so that extension does not exist. So let's fix that. So I am going to delete that extra vertex there, and let's validate, and that fixed that error. And moving on to the next error, where must not overlap. So this error is on San Antonio Drive. There are two segments that are overlapping each other with different address ranges. So to correct that, simply select a segment and double click on it to edit to view vertices, and looks like there is this vertex that is extending past instead of forming an intersection here. So I am going to remove that extra vertex, and validate, and looks like that resolved our issue here, and it formed a four-way intersection here. And now let's look at the next error type, which is must be single part. And there are two segments in this area which are multi-part segments. So all road center lines must be a single part segment and not multi-part. So let's look at these errors. This is on Agua Duro Drive, and let's see what's happening. So to fix the single part error, you can simply right click on the error and click explode. That explodes the which explodes the multi-part segment into single parts. So now selecting these segments, there are two segments with identical attribute information. However, this looks like a single road segment. Let's verify using the base map, and it does, and there's no intersection at this junction. So this could be a single segment rather than two segments. So to fix that, we can merge those two segments into a single segment. So to do that, click Editor and Merge. This will show up the features that you want to merge with, and click on these records, and the respective segment will be highlighted. You can select which segment that you want to merge the other segment with. So I'm going to select this segment that I want to merge the yellow segment with. So click on that, and that created a single segment for us. And let's validate again to make sure this was fixed, and looks like it did. You can fix these issues same as how we did with Agua Duro Drive. Now let's look at the exceptions where some of these errors that cannot be fixed. So I'm going to do the exceptions 1, and it is near the intersection of Goat Hill Road and Interstate 25 or I-25. So let's turn the imagery base map on to see what the issue is. Looking closely, this is an underpass. There is no access to I-25 from Goat Hill Road. So you do not need to break this segment at the intersection of I-25, and this is an exception. In your local topology, you can mark this as an exception by simply right-clicking on the rule type and mark as an exception. And similarly for the other segment, mark as an exception, and that takes care of the errors here. So now let's take a look at the second exceptions bookmark. And here there are a bunch of topology errors. I'm going to turn the administrative boundary on, and here the errors are due to these segments are either extending outside the administrative boundary or touching the boundary on the edges and not at the vertices. And these address points are clearly outside the administrative boundary of the provider. These could be a result of either the boundary issue, or there could be a cross-jurisdictional MOUs with the other county or city to manage each other's addresses. Again, these can be marked as an exception in your local topology by right-clicking on these individual errors and marking as exceptions, or by creating an addressing boundary or a data provisioning boundary for the data. If you have a provisioning boundary for your data that is other than your administrative boundary, please upload a copy of that to the NM911 data portal along with your monthly data submission, and we will use that boundary for validation. This concludes the NM911 topology checks and data correction video. Thank you for your time and attention. For more videos, check the New Mexico 911 program website, nm911.org.